we passed a new constitution with high hopes it's going to be implemented as our expectation, only to realize on the drafting of the bills they were being watered down.
I will give them 70 for having helped pass the constitution. I will give them 11% for not paying taxes.
Jambo moja tu yenye naweza wapa heko ni barabara tu Thika Road.
Averagely they have done their co-function. Kama unahesabu legislation zile zinapitishwa.
I believe our parliament will be the best parliament in Africa ever seen.
The Constitution of Kenya provides that all sovereign power belongs to the people. The people may exercise their sovereign power either directly or through their democratically elected representatives at the national and county level. At the national level, the Constitution establishes the Parliament of Kenya and gives it extensive powers, especially in financial matters. Countdown to Counties takes a look at the Parliament of Kenya and asks the question, can we trust Parliament with our money? Under the devolved government, Kenya now has a bicameral parliament comprising the National Assembly and the Senate.
If you look at countries across the world where you have a very diverse population, you will actually notice that they have bicameral parliaments. They have two house parliaments. The United States, Nigeria, India, England, the UK. I think it's very important for us to understand that we now have a bicameral house. We have a parliament that has two houses. One house is the National Assembly. The other house is the Senate. Who goes to the National Assembly? Essentially, it is 4 categories of people. The first category of people are people that we elect directly, the way we always have, except that they will not be 220 constituencies. Those people are 290. The second category of parliamentarians are women who will compete for seats, but for which only women are eligible to compete. So that electoral unit is going to be the county. So in each county, we'll elect a woman who will go and sit in the National Assembly. This woman will compete for her position. It's just that she will only compete against other women. She can run on a party ticket if she wants, or she can run as an independent candidate. The third category of parliamentarians, there are 12 seats in the National Assembly, which are reserved for what are known as special interest groups, including workers, youth, people with disabilities, minorities. So these are groups of people who historically would not have, and also women can come in through those seats. Those 12 seats are filled through party lists. Each political party must give a list of the people that they will be nominating to Parliament to the Electoral Commission before the elections happen. The fourth category of parliamentarian is a category of parliamentarian we've always had and we all know, and almost in the same format, the Speaker of the National Assembly. However, the Speaker of the National Assembly will now no longer have a vote in the House.
The National Assembly and the Senate are collectively known as the National Parliament. The Constitution outlines the functions of each. The National Assembly represents the people of the constituencies and special interests. It deliberates and resolves issues of concern to the people. The National Assembly determines the allocation of national revenue between the levels of government. It appropriates funds for expenditure under the budget. And it undertakes oversight over national revenue, over the presidency and other state organs. The National Assembly approves national declarations of war and emergency. The Senate represents the counties and serves to protect the interests of the counties. The Senate considers and debates and approves bills concerning the counties. The Senate determines the allocation of revenue among the counties. The Senate undertakes oversight of state officers by approving resolutions to remove the president or deputy president.
The National Assembly basically makes your national laws. The Senate, on the other hand, is responsible for laws to do with the counties. and to do with devolution. So the Senate is primarily to protect the devolved units. Again, the separation of powers comes in there again. The two houses act as a check on each other. Because the purpose of the Senate is to also protect devolution when it comes to the issue of the budget. At the end of the day, any budgets with respect to the counties must go through the Senate.
Treasury is no longer having the powers to make laws and to make decisions on the budget for the country. These powers of Treasury are now being very well checked by other institutions. And those institutions include the National Assembly, because it's only the National Assembly that is going to deliberate discussions on public expenditure and also revenue. If we have got a good National Assembly that has got good men and women, people who are thinking national, we are going to see them discussing in a very rational manner how the national budget is going to be drafted and how the national budget is going to be distributed across counties, for instance, how the national budget is going to be distributed to for different responsibilities than in the past.
The 10th Parliament has been a busy one. It has scored many successes as well as failures. So how has the 10th Parliament performed?
The 10th Parliament is a parliament that was born out of a major crisis. Having said that, then we can say that actually this parliament has made progress in areas where we wouldn't have expected a parliament of that nature to make such progress. Important among these is the production of a new constitution within a period of about 2 years, when in the past all efforts to produce a new constitution used to fail towards the end of the journey. So this parliament has actually made us have a destination in terms of a new constitution. But there are other areas too where we can say this parliament has actually succeeded. This is in the area of fast-tracking important laws and showing us actually that you can make laws if you've got deadlines.
In the past, when we were supporting this, we had on mind counties like Turkana.
Parliament has been accused of passing substandard laws and diluting key provisions on the basis of self-interest. The Miscellaneous Amendment Bill 2012 is one such example, where renegade parliamentarians sought to water down the Elections Act and the Political Parties Act by allowing party hopping prior to the 2013 elections.
If I was giving a score, I really, with all due respect to them, would score them at a D in terms of their delivery on the new constitution. We've seen this in many respects. For example, the first version of the Elections Act and the Political Parties Act that had gone through respected the Constitution and was completely consistent with the Constitution. In fact, to some extent, was a bit ahead. They then went and repealed or attempted on the 20th of June and 21st of June to repeal the provisions that actually had made that legislation be ahead by trying to allow themselves to change political parties without having to go back to the voters as parliamentarians, by trying to ensure that there were provisions that allowed presidential candidates to be on party lists for nominated members of parliament. So you have to make a choice. If you're a woman who wants to be president, you have to make a choice. Go for the presidency. You can't go and then say that put me also on the nominated members of parliament's list. If you're a person who's from an ethnic minority and you want to be president, You can't say, then put me on the nominated list of members of parliament in case I don't make it as the president.
The quality of our MPs has not changed. What has only changed is actually the context in which they are operating. The personality of most of the MPs remains the same. Individuals interested not in representing their constituencies, but representing their personal interests. Individuals who are running, who are taking positions on the basis of short-term interests. And individuals who have also shown that they are as greedy as the previous parliament.
The Leadership and Integrity Act is yet another example of a weak law passed by Parliament to serve their short-term personal interests. Our investigations into the backgrounds of contenders for the governor's seat in Nairobi County found that at least 3 of them are involved in ongoing criminal cases in various courts around the country. Similarly, court records demonstrate that several MPs have been charged or implicated in the abuse of the CDF kitty. Many others are mentioned in the reports of the Auditor General. Should these and other state officers charged with abuse of office be eligible to run for leadership?
We need to raise the bar to more towards ideal positions where if you are mentioned in a scandal, it shouldn't matter whether you have been convicted or not. We should not entrust you with public office until you have been cleared, and cleared convincingly.
The Leadership and Integrity Bill, as far as I'm concerned, is already diluted because there are many instances of senior public servants, or whether in appointive or elective offices, who may not have been convicted in a court of law, but have been implicated in various reports of commissions of inquiry. For example, the famous one on the land, Akwimi inquiry, the one that examined the land, did identify many senior public servants who have been involved in grabbing public land. And up to today, that report is there.
Because they represent short-term interests and they are governed by self-interest only, they tend to look at laws in terms of personal gain rather than in terms of public good. And therefore, their interpretation of Leadership and Integrity Bill is not going to be from a national perspective. It's going to be from an individual, selfish point of view.
The challenge for today is that we are dealing with a parliament that is just before a transition. And this is a parliament that we left intact even after promulgating the new constitution, while we were vetting a lot of other offices. So the self-preservation drive in members of parliament is so strong today that it presents the greatest threat to our continuing with the reform agenda.
There is concern that some of the present weaknesses of Parliament may be replicated and even magnified under the new dispensation. Parliament has been largely ineffective in fighting corruption. The 10th Parliament has come to the forefront with their high-profile investigations into key scandals.
How much money did he give to Mr. Kolei personally?
It should be about 1.2 billion.
Most of these scandals have come and gone without indictment of the perpetrators, indicating that Parliament is playing to the gallery of public opinion.
People wanted accountability, and the way what they saw would deliver that to them was by supporting multi-party. So we went for multi-party. But then multi-party did not deliver the full set of freedoms, and it did not deliver accountability. In fact, corruption got worse for a while because it became decentralized. It led to the Goldenberg scandal, Anglo-leasing, and other such scandals. So multi-party politics actually, in the short term, led to an increase in freedoms, and it also led to an increase in corruption. And this led to a situation where Kenyans were once again agitating for constitutional reform. Again, I think the main thing that Kenyans want out of the new constitution is greater accountability.
There has not been the will to fight corruption from the top, really. There hasn't been. And this is why you find today that institution, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, is literally inoperational. The commissioners are not there, senior management are leaving, and the act that was passed last year watered down not only the mandate but the powers really of the commission so much so that it's not really the commission that we had a year or 2 years ago.
Parliament has earned itself the dubious title of the biggest auction house in Africa due to widespread alleged vote buying. Allegations of brown envelopes abound, with the going rate set to range between 7,000 and 100,000 shillings to expunge names from parliamentary reports or to defeat motions of no confidence. Perhaps no other issue has angered Kenyans as much as Parliament's self-seeking remuneration agenda. Since 2003, parliamentarians have progressively increased their terms to create a class of millionaires, while more Kenyans have slipped deeper into poverty. In June 2012, Parliament sought to increase the winding up allowance of each Member of Parliament to 15 million shillings, up from 3.7 million. The motion was moved by the Minister of Finance, Jeru Githai, but eventually defeated by the President, Mwai Kibaki, who declined to assent to the amended law, citing a pending court case over the matter. Yet another display of impunity and avarice by the members of the House has been the refusal by MPs to pay tax, with the exception of a handful.
If a member wants any money deducted from his salary, if he's feeling sufficiently philanthropic, if he's feeling sufficiently charitable, and he wants to contribute to Kenyans, he is at liberty to do so, and we will comply with his request.
When KRA threatened legal action against the MPs, a deal was struck with the Treasury, which saw the MPs' taxes being paid by the Kenyan taxpayer through the Treasury. But even then, a handful adamantly refused to pay their tax. So, can we trust Parliament with our money?
We can never and should never trust Parliament with our money. We should be eternally vigilant. If we stand back and say, thank you, we've given you this money, please spend it. Vigilance must be eternal. If we go to sleep on them for 1 minute, you've all seen how money can move, and it will move quickly. So Kenyans have to sleep with one eye open.
Will we, the voters, support Chapter 6 by voting in good leaders? Will we vet these leaders to ensure they don't get through if they are implicated in past corruption?
When you're looking at a leader, someone who is bringing themselves forward for consideration of appointment or election, you need to look at their contact previously. Have they been involved in matters that are questionable in terms of integrity? Have they been mentioned in scandals, corruption scandals previously? How have they, if you are dealing with members of Parliament, how have they managed their CDF?
So unless we have a leadership that believes in eliminating corruption by dissociating itself from corruption networks and punishing friends who are involved in corruption scandal, we shall continue paying lip service to this corruption. And therefore the leaders we elect in the next India government that we are going to have after the next general election will determine on how we deal with corruption.
If you can think about the kind of Kenya we want and tell yourself that you are that difference that you want to be made, if you can think and stop blaming members of parliament, presidents and governors, and remember that it is up to us to elect the right ones, then we will start to relive that moment. And if we can go beyond that and realize that we can't just talk about the mega corruption scandals. Those ones are mega, but ask ourselves, how many times in the last 1 month have you bribed a police officer? How many times in the last 1 month have you sought to jump some queue? How many times in the last 1 month have you approached somebody to get for your child or relative a job instead of asking that they get it competitively? If we can realize that it is the small corruptions that build onto the mega corruption, then we will be the change that we need.
We cannot leave this work to IEBC. We cannot leave this work to NCIC. We cannot leave this work to the judges or whoever, or to the political parties. Every Kenyan must make this election the first election under the Constitution and get us good leaders who can bring change to this country.
If you don't vote, you have actually voted. You may, by not showing up on voting day, give a vote to the very dangerous person and the type of leadership that we don't need. So if there is somebody who you think could make a difference, go out there and give them the opportunity to get into leadership. And when they get there, hold them to account.
Kenya has paid a heavy price for poor leadership. It is therefore up to each of us to elect good leaders. What type of voter are you? Remember to vote wisely and choose a leader who meets the standards of Chapter 6 and who will bring development to our country. A good country needs good leaders. Support Chapter 6.
This program is brought to you by TISA with the support of our funding partners. However, views expressed are those of the individuals featured and do not necessarily represent views of our partners.